Welcome back. My name is Gabe. This is my channel. Today I bought a $10,000 watch, but I'm gonna tell you why. Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Gabe. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking the videos that you've liked so far. I really hope that the content that we're producing has been beneficial for you in your financial journey. And so, like I said before, we're all in this together. We want to know how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money. But today's video is going to be a little bit different. I bought a watch, and we're going to kind of talk about that and where the state of the watch market is. Now, if you don't know anything about watches, or if you're a seasoned veteran, I think you're gonna like today's content because we're gonna kind of break down exactly where the watch market has gone, where it's at, and where I think it's headed as we go towards Christmas and towards the new year. If you're a watch collector or if you've never bought a watch before, the state of the watch market right now is very interesting. And when I'm talking about the watch market, I'm talking about brands like Rolex, brands like Patek Philippe, brands like Audemars Piguet, kind of some of these main brands that are out there right now. And another one is Richard Mille, a very, very expensive watch. But what I've thought is so interesting in about the last 2 years is how these companies have kind of created their own market when it comes to watch buying. This is a Rolex Submariner date, and it's a very common Rolex. As a matter of fact, it's probably the #1 most knocked off Rolex in the world. It's got a black dial, it's got a ceramic bezel. It's a neat watch, but I'm not gonna lie, when I first started watch collecting, I passed up this watch probably 20 times. That was about 3 years ago. Now, in today's market, you can't even hardly find this watch brand new from your authorized dealer, or AD as kind of we call it in the watch world. Your AD, it probably has you on a waiting list, or this might be the watch that they call you even though you've been waiting for a year for the new Pepsi or the new Batgirl or your Daytona ceramic white face or black face. But when I got the call for this piece, I jumped on it right away, and I'll tell you why. Because retail or MSRP on this watch is $8,550, right? That's what you buy it brand new from the AD. However, on the secondary market, and I'm going to use that term a lot today because that is referencing, the secondary market is where if you can't get it from your AD, you go to the secondary market. However, on the secondary market, this watch is selling for over $11,000. So for the initial investment, I think I'm like 20% on my money. However, I'll never sell this watch, so it really doesn't matter. But I just find it interesting how something like this, which nobody really even cared about, and it's kind of the same thing with the Hulk. Nobody cared about a green face Submariner 2.5 years ago, or even like all the Explorer 1, the Explorer 2, all these watches that Rolex has kind of, if you talk to the AD, they'll tell you that it's just supply and demand and Rolex can't get them out fast enough. However, we've seen an intensive increase in the desire for these sports model watches. And I've actually talked to one of the reps from Rolex, and he'll tell you the same thing. They're producing more than they ever have, and it's just that everybody wants this watch more so now. I don't know, that's kind of hard to believe. Leave your opinion in the comment on whether or not they're just producing less so that the value can go up. But where it's really hurting the brand, I think, is that a lot of guys, instead of keeping their watches, they're selling them to the secondary market, because it's kind of difficult to say no to those 50% or 100% investments on your money. And so I think that actually hurts the brand. However, I'm not unhappy that I paid $8,000 for a watch that's worth $11,000 right out the door. So let's talk about some of the other brands. The main three right now is probably Rolex, Patek, and AP. AP's kind of etched themselves into that top tier of watches, and really good on them. I think their marketing and their, the way that they deal with their clients is very different from Rolex and Patek, and I believe it's really made a difference on the kind of where they've built their foundation with their clientele. But let's take for example the 5711 Patek Nautilus. It's a $30,000 watch. There's sometimes up to a 3 or a 4 or 5 year wait for you to get that piece if you have a good relationship with your AD. And on the secondary market, that watch can cost upwards of $80,000. That's incredible. And so this is kind of the state of the watch market right now. And I know that everybody, kind of like the housing market, everybody says, well, it can't keep going up and up and up and up forever. And in some ways, in about the last 2 months, the watch market has kind of decreased a little bit because there's so much supply on the secondary market. Let's take the brand new Jubilee bracelet bat. They call it the Bat Girl. It's a GMT. It's got a black and blue bezel. A watch like that retails for, I believe, $9,600 or $9,700. And on the secondary market, when it first came out, I believe one sold for almost $27,000. That's crazy. However, since then, you can get one on the secondary market for between $15,000 and $17,000. So I'm kind of hoping that the watch market comes back to a more reasonable, place where we can afford, and where these ADs aren't, going crazy for a watch model like this. This is probably one of the most iconic Rolexes that you can buy. It's a great movement. It's a diver's watch. It's a great watch. It's a Submariner. I hope to give it to my son one day and kind of pass it down. But other than that, there's nothing really special about it. I mean, I like it. I think it looks great. But is this my first choice if I were to go to the Rolex dealer right now and pick a watch up? No, I think there's some other cooler pieces out there. However, there's such a demand for these watches that when your AD calls you and says, hey, I got this watch, do you want it? You pretty much just say, yes, ma'am, thank you, I appreciate that. Keep me in mind next time. And so the state of the watch market is very interesting right now. It's very high, probably at an all-time high. As a matter of fact, this watch is a Tudor Black Bay Bronze, the watch that I'm wearing, and Tudor is Rolex's little brother. It's kind of like their little brother company. And it's a great piece. The case is bronze. It's probably my favorite watch I've ever bought. But it was half of the price of this Submariner. And there's not really a demand for it because you can probably find it at an authorized dealer right now. But I just love it. I mean, I wear this probably more than any other pieces that I own right now because I just really like it. And I think we're losing guys who collect watches because they like them, and we're going more towards guys and girls who collect watches to kind of make a statement. It's like a statement piece in your wardrobe. That's not why I started collecting watches. And it wasn't also like a status thing either. As a matter of fact, most guys who collect watches just for their status, they don't know anything about them. If you ask them, hey, what movement's in that watch? They're gonna be like, oh, I don't know, I just bought it. As a matter of fact, in Mexico, when I was in Mexico in March, and this guy had on a beautiful stainless Daytona pre-ceramic. So it was the one that they came out with before they came out with the new one, which everybody wants. And I tried to start talking to him about his watch, and he didn't know anything about it. And so I asked him, I was like, hey man, do you know that your watch right now is worth an all-time high? And he was like, oh no, I just, I bought it because it looks good. And sure, if you want to buy a watch because it looks good, that's awesome. But there's like a family, I say a family, but there's lots of guys who are very horology minded, and they can appreciate, and we can appreciate a good watch and what it means, and it kind of transcends the amount that you spend on it. Richard Mille who right now is, produces one of the most beautiful, one of the most expensive watches on the market, is so intricate. Like I'm gonna put a picture of a Richard Mille up on the screen right now, and just look at that. I mean, that's incredible. Beautiful watches that this guy creates, and some of his watches are selling for double and triple their MSRP. That's incredible. I mean, this is where the watch market is right now. And just like anything else, the housing market, the oil market, everybody's waiting for it to come back down to a more reasonable place where other people can afford these watches and guys aren't taking their pieces and selling them to the secondary market to make a fast investment. Because that's really, in my opinion, that's what a watch is. It's an investment over time. And whether you sell it over time or not, most guys like to buy their watches and keep them and watch them increase in value, almost kind of like adding to their portfolio. So as always, I'm gonna give you some steps on how you can start collecting and building a collection of watches. The first thing that you need to do is kind of decide what brands do you like. And it doesn't always have to be something like Rolex or AP or anything like that. You might see a watch at your local clothes store that just kind of stuck out to you. Watch collecting is way more than what the watch costs. You kind of have to think of it like that's irrelevant. Kind of figure out what style of watch do you like? Do you like a round face? Do you like a square face? One of my favorite brands, and I'm gonna put it up on the screen, is called Panerai. That's Panerai, Panerai. And they're one of my favorite watches. As a matter of fact, it was the first watch that I ever owned, was a Panerai. And I believe I have two in my collection, and it's one of my favorite pieces. Back in like 06 to 08, that was a really hot watch, but since then, that watch has extremely decreased in value, and you can find them at great prices. Like, let's just, for example, a Panerai that may cost $12,000 or $13,000 retail, you might be able to get that for $3,000 or $4,000 on the secondary market. So the secondary market's not always a bad thing where guys are just jacking up prices, because they can. Sometimes it's also a great place to find a watch that may not increase in value, and so you don't want to take that initial hit and have, in the car business, we called it negative equity. So I kind of think it's the same idea. Instead of paying retail for a watch that's going to decrease in value, you can sometimes find them on the secondary market. It just depends with every brand. Every brand has one or two pieces that actually hold their value really well. Some of those go over value, but what you need to do is just decide what style of watches do you like, and then kind of start looking for brands that carry that style of watch. The second thing is you want to go with a watch that matches your style. Now they say there's a watch for every occasion. So let's say that you wear suits a lot, right? You probably don't want to wear this guy because it's kind of bulky. It's a 40 millimeter and it's going to kind of sit high, and your shirt may not go over it. So what's your style? Do you wear suits a lot? Well, then you may like something that has a flatter face and kind of a smaller face so that you can get it under your cuff and it looks good. So everybody's style is different. Do you wear jeans a lot? I wear jeans a lot. And so this watch is kind of a great everyday watch for me. I haven't worn it too much since I got it, but it's a great piece that I can put together with pretty much anything, whether I'm wearing polo and jeans, or even slacks, or just a nice pair of pants and a nice shirt. I can probably get away with wearing this. But what's your style? That's a very important part of watch collecting, is what's your style, because everybody's style is different. But I believe there's a watch that matches every style, and there's a watch brand that makes a watch that will match your style as well. My last point, which is kind of really important, I think it's really important on anybody's watch journey, is don't compare your collection, to somebody else's. I have a friend, and I'm not going to say his name, but if he's watching, you know who you are. And he has an unbelievable collection. He has some of the most expensive Rolexes that they make, some really cool AP. I mean, just like when he brought this collection to my house and I saw it, I was blown away. And he's a little bit further in on his watch journey. And just to be very honest, financially, he has a lot more money than I do. But that didn't matter, because when we started talking about watches, our mutual kind of desire and passion for watches was a lot more important than what I spent or what he spent on them. And I admired his collection. It was beautiful. And he's become a really good friend of mine because we just love watches. And so the friendships that you can make when you start collecting watches is really cool, because it really has nothing to do with how much money you have, or as long as you're not a douchebag, then you can find some really cool people in the watch collecting space. He's one of my best friends, and his watch collection is unbelievable. And I tell him all the time, dude, your watch collection is insane. And I'll get there one day, but when I get there, he'll be way ahead of me. And you know what? That's okay, because it's not the amount of money that you pay for these watches. It's what do they mean to you? Just kind of to finish out this video, this watch, this particular watch, this Submariner, even though it's not my favorite Rolex, I think it's beautiful. I'll tell you why it means a lot to me, because a year ago, I was in some serious financial trouble with my agency. We had tried to expand and it didn't work, and I ended up losing $100,000, and I was just in a dark place, and watch collecting was nowhere on my mind. And so in the last 9 to 10 months, we've kind of reestablished, we've kind of caught up to where we were. And so when she called, I was ready to kind of collect another piece like this. And so every watch has a different story. This watch I probably will never be able to sell, because it's kind of my comeback watch. This was a piece that took me a while to get. I didn't necessarily want it, but I'll never sell it. It means a lot to me, because where I am today and where it was a year ago are two different, very different places. And so every watch has a story, and that'll be the story of this watch. What's your story on the watch that you're wearing? And if you have any questions about other pieces that you're interested in, put them in the comments. I love to talk about watches. And so anyway, guys, once again, my name is Gabe. This is my channel. Thanks for joining. If you can, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next video.